Jungkook nodded his head, the memories of that certain night flashing in front of his eyes. At the bar, we told you to give him a glass of tequila, right again, Jungkook nodded. We kinda put something in it, that's why you both ended up in his house, in his bed, with no clothes on. The two raised their eyebrows when Jungkook just sighed, contemplating before speaking as well. Well, he started. I kinda knew you put something in the drinks, Jimin and Hosea both gasped. You did, yes, he replied. Shit, Jimin shouted. I thought you were innocent. Guess we raised you well, huh? Jungkook rolled his eyes. Shut up. I did know that you put something in the drinks, that's why I changed those drinks into something else. I didn't want to do something illegal just to get what I want, you know. And I'm not as clueless as you think I am. I know what I was doing that time, it just so happened that we still got drunk and everything else happened. So it's just an honest mistake, no need to feel guilty about it, Jungkook explained. Jimin and Hoseok's faces then contorted into something Jungkook couldn't determine. Don't tell me you did something else, Jungkook asked. Well, you know, Hoseok's voice was small, unsure whether to say it or not. He bumped Jimin's shoulder so he would say it, but the latter just bumped his shoulder back. You say it. I already told him about the drinks, Jimin whispered. Just tell me, Jungkook whined. Hoseok bit his lips before saying, we also kinda waited for you until morning so we can take your pictures while you're leaving his house. Jungkook's jaw dropped, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. And we kinda posted it on social media too, Hoseok added. What, they were busy having catfights that they didn't notice Taehyung outside the door, hearing their conversation from the very top. He was going to pay Jungkook a short visit before heading straight to the church, but he stopped midway when he heard voices inside the room. He didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the news he got was shocking. Oh, what a surprise this was! The guests gasped. Some were gaping like fishes out of the water while some just had their jaws dropped. No one expected this to happen, especially now that it was their wedding day, but Taehyung just had to say it on his vow. It started with, I always thought how gay it sounded whenever I remember the way we met. I thought I was fated to meet you at that bar, that I was destined to be with you from the start. How gay is that, right? Blaming destiny and fate for bringing me to you, Taehyung started, chuckling at how soft he sounded. But then I overheard your conversation with your friends earlier. Jungkook's smile dropped. His breath hitched and suddenly, his hands were trembling. Somewhere among the crowds, he could hear Hoseok and Jimin's horrified voices, but he ignored them. His stares glued on Taehyung. Just when he started thinking about negative thoughts like Taehyung getting angry and leaving him alone at that altar, the guy smiled fondly at him. He took Jungkook's trembling hands and pulled him closer before cupping his face in his hands. I realized it should be your friends we are blaming, he chuckled soulfully, kissing the younger's forehead over the veil he was wearing on his head. They pushed you to me and now we're both falling. Why you're not mad? Jungkook asked, staring at his eyes which only showed Taehyung's love for him. And really, that was enough for an answer to his question. Because Taehyung didn't get mad, instead he was thankful it happened. It was their first wedding anniversary when Jungkook decided to give Taehyung a tiny present, yet a big surprise. His husband took him to a picnic under the night sky. Everything was prepared by Taehyung, the location, the food, and even the blanket. He knew that Jungkook wasn't so fond of fancy dates at a restaurant and he couldn't thought of anything more meaningful than this one. Taehyung wanted to remind him of the first night they kissed with love in their eyes, the first night when they indirectly told each other their feelings. But tonight, there were no stars. The sky was clear and dark, and he thought maybe tonight wasn't such a good idea for stargazing, but then the moon changed his mind. Yes, no stars were surrounding the moon, but that only highlighted the moon's beauty. It was a big shiny circle, the biggest they have ever seen, and it was mesmerizing. They talked about nonsense things, useful stuff, and even life hacks. They also talked about their pasts and what they wanted their future to look like. Maybe it went something like growing old together and dying of old age, or maybe something like dying together knowing that Era has gotten herself a happy family like ours, just the cliché types. And they were so drawn to their conversation that they didn't notice a shooting star falling from the sky until it was already too late for a wish. What they didn't know, though, was that they unconsciously told the hiding stars the desire in their hearts. Taehyung, then, took out a huge wrapped box and gave it to Jungkook as if the flowers he gave him earlier weren't enough as a wedding gift. Inside it was a bag, one Jungkook didn't ask for but got anyway. It was simple, red but branded. The younger thought the date was a better gift, but of course, he didn't say it. He smiled at his husband as he accepted the gift, and at that moment, he knew that it was time for him to give Taehyung his gift. Jungkook grabbed a small wrapped box and gave it to the guy. He was almost ashamed of how different the sizes of their boxes were if he didn't know better what his own box was holding. Taehyung had a curious glint in his eyes but a fond smile on his lips. He opened the gift, not expecting it to be something very surprising, but then his eyes widened upon seeing its content. He took it out and looked at Jungkook as if he just told really shocking news. And maybe he did. Jungkook chuckled at the look on Taehyung's face and said, "I kinda figured it would be great to show it to you because last time, you didn't get to see it." "You're pregnant," Taehyung shouted, happiness laced in his voice. He just got a positive pregnancy test from his husband and he was so happy he wanted to hear it coming from the younger's mouth. "Yes, I'm," Jungkook nodded his head enthusiastically. Taehyung jumped on him for a hug. "I'm so happy," the older screamed before pulling away from the hug to press the stick onto his lips and kiss it. "Taehyung, I peed on that," Jungkook shrieked, disgusted, and Taehyung asked, nonchalantly, "I literally ate you out last night." Taehyung chuckled happily at the younger's cuteness before pulling him in his arms again. And maybe that meant long and difficult mood swings again, but Taehyung didn't really care. They announced this news to their family and friends and they got excited hugs from them, as well as high-pitched congratulations. Even Jin, who was in a different country, learned about it and congratulated them. Days, weeks, and months passed and they were enjoying themselves. Jungkook's stomach wasn't big enough yet, but Era was already talking to her sibling as if they could hear her babbling. Jungkook's pregnancy hormones then kicked in. His cravings were tiring for Taehyung, but of course, he wasn't complaining.